Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Alone podcast. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to take another moment and read a review and comment from Apple Podcasts. This one comes from Whippersnappa, and Whippersnappa says, "This podcast throws you right into the fire, smoke, and grit of the story of Alone contestants. Sam scratches every itch concerning who the people really are. Their backstory and experience is a fountain of wisdom, experience, and raw emotion. Any fan of the show, whether diehard or casual, will enjoy the knowledge and expertise shared by each participant. So sit back and let the smell of roasting trout fill your senses." Well, Whippersnappa, I think you said it better than I ever could have. So let's go ahead and sit back and let the smell of roasting trout fill our senses as we listen to episode 10 of the Alone podcast. Okay, so here we are with episode 10 of the Alone podcast, and tonight's guest is Biko Wright. Biko was obviously a participant on the most recent season of Alone, season 8. So Biko, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited to have you here. Super excited that this has finally worked out. On the backside of this whole thing, I think Biko lives in like the most disaster-prone area on Earth, which we might talk about as we get into the episode. But it basically sounds like from the time he was on Alone until like half an hour ago, his whole neighborhood is like a natural disaster war zone. So Biko, I'm glad we could finally make this work out, and hopefully no fires, landslides, windstorms, ice storms, or anything else happen for at least the next hour.
Fingers crossed.
Well, let's just jump in. If you wouldn't mind just kind of taking a moment and welcome the dog to the podcast. Welcome Biko's puppy.
Rottweiler puppy and twin babies is just too much.
Yeah. It's funny. We've got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we got a puppy a little while ago. I mean, he's still a puppy, but he's older. And the concept of having small children and a puppy at the same time, if I could redo things, I would redo that whole thing.
Right.
All right, Biko, if you can just take a moment and kind of share who you are and your background and where you come from, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So I'm Biko. I was on the last season of Alone. It was an awesome adventure, and I learned so much about who I am and who I want to be in the future. So it was a all around amazing experience. You know, I started getting into wilderness skills as a kid. My dad would take us out fishing and hunting and camping, backpacking, that kind of stuff. And he was always into that stuff when he was a kid. And so he transferred that over to me and my brother, started us young, and I fell in love with it and just built on it as I got older. And, you know, as I got into adulthood, I started doing stuff myself and building on the skills I had learned as a kid, you know, and eventually I got to a point where I could actually apply for a loan. You know, it's funny, when I first applied, you know, I never thought in a million years I'd actually get on the show. It was just kind of on a whim thing, and it is crazy that I made it on there, you know?
Yeah, what was that like? You know, I've often thought about that. What was that like when, you know, you submit the application and I'm sure that's like inside, yeah, I would love to be on the show, but you know, there's thousands of applicants and it gets narrowed down to 10 people. What are the chances? What is it like to get that phone call to say, hey, do you want to come to, what is it, like the tryout or whatever they end up doing where they kind of start narrowing down their final field? What was that feeling like to get that call and then to eventually be like, Biko, you're on Alone? Was it kind of like, oh no, what have I done? Or were you just super stoked? How did that feel?
I think I was definitely more stoked, but I was also worried, you know? I was like, man, what if I just go out there and fall right on my face and, you know, everybody laughs at me and is like, why'd you do that, bud?
Well, I mean, I guess you kind of did fall on your face at one point, right? Going up the hill and
I did. Yeah, I did. And then I found clay in the earth, which I used to make my fireplace. So it worked out.
So that's funny. So you fell, and just want to be very clear here because it took me a second. You did not find the person Clay. You
No.
you found the dirt mud Clay.
No. Yes, I found the dirt mud clay in the side of a hill,
That
not the expert hunting clay.
Yeah, not that Clay. I don't know what's going on, but it took me a second to realize that we were not talking about Clay. Like, wait a minute, I didn't know this aspect of Alone. Were you and your partner, were you expecting when you started the application process, or did that all happen after you'd, applied and had already started that ball rolling?
That happened after I had already applied and started that ball rolling. So it's funny because earlier in the the boot camp or something, we were talking about kids at one point, and I was saying I hadn't had any kids yet because like I just never felt I was financially ready for it. And then like I think like 2 months later, because it was a long process from when I applied to actually going out there. I think I applied at sometime in March or May or something. I think it was May. And then boot camp was sometime in June. And then we got flown out in August. So yeah, it was sometime in the middle. But I remember when we found out it was twins was like literally 2 days before I was flying out, or 3 days
Oh
before I was
man.
flying out.
Twins is like one of my biggest nightmares. I'm sure it's fantastic, but like
No, it was terrifying. Here we are thinking we're gonna have our first kid, and then all of a sudden, and I couldn't go to the ultrasound because of COVID. So she got back and was showing me a cell phone video of the ultrasound, and so it was a second surprise for me. She didn't tell me, and then I was just like, "What?" You just hit the floor,
Yeah,
and then I was like, "Oh crap! I better really try and win."
that kind of lights an extra fire, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm just gonna put this out there. So anyone who's listening that has intentions of going on the show, it seems like a really good way to boost your stock is to just casually mention that you will be having a child sometime around the time while you're gone or soon after you would potentially be home. I'm surprised at just how, when you look at the relatively small number of participants, how many like have these major life-changing events happening right around the time that they're out and coming home. So anyways, surefire way, just go ahead and do that and you'll be on.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, actually. It's funny to think about it,
Yeah,
but I've
like,
talked to multiple people who've had something going on while they were going.
and I mean, I'm sure that if I would have done a better job of checking background, I would know the answer to this, but how long from the time you got home, so because you got home and then, I mean, how many months did you have until your children were born?
So I flew home December 12th. That's when I finally got on a plane back to Oregon. And the kids were born February 5th. They still came a month early. So they were supposed to be March 5th and came February 5th. So yeah, I had like 2 months.
Man, I guess first of all, I'm assuming they're doing all right with the little bit early there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thankfully they didn't need any in ICU or nothing. They were small when they came out, but they were healthy and doing good on their own. So
Well, it's good to hear.
we've been nothing but blessed with their health.
That's fantastic. That's a huge stress, like a
Yeah.
bigger stress than you can ever imagine. And I can't imagine having twins and a little bit early and coming at the time that they did. So that's great that everything is going well. But I mean, for you, I mean, obviously speaking to other people, it sounds like for a lot of people that transition home is pretty difficult.
It
And
is.
you kind of got thrown right right into the fire, when you got
Yeah.
home. Um, have you had a chance to process yet, or are you still still just trying to catch some sleep?
I think part of me is still processing it. Sometimes it feels like it was all just a dream. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm back in my kind of normal life these days, and it almost feels like it was just like a dream I had, and then I woke up and I was back to just normal life, you know?
You wake up and you're
So
like, oh, wait, no, I was dreaming, but that's a screaming child that just woke
yeah.
the other one up.
Yep. I'll have
That
like little flashbacks here and there too to like a moment out there that was like, something that stuck with me, and I'll be like, I'll just like remember this one moment and be like, oh wow, yeah, I was doing that last year.
Do you have any examples of those that you can share that your mind just kind of wanders
um
to?
I remember waking up and seeing the tarp roof flapping. Like I think I woke up because of loud roof flapping.
Yeah.
And then I remember just looking up at my rafters on the ceiling, and I had my main beam was connected to a live tree, and then the other was on like across two crossed logs there, and the whole beam was swaying with the wind because the tree up there was blowing in the wind, and so my entire roof beam and all the rafters were just squeaking and moving back and forth like this.
Huh.
The tree, but it was all like tied and wired together,
Yeah. So
And
in your
I've had like flashbacks to that moment of just like seeing the roof moving in with the wind of the tree.
that's an interesting thing to have your brain. I guess to me that seems like an interesting thing to have your brain and your subconscious kind of click back to. Do you have any, I guess, sense or idea of why that's one of those moments that kind of keeps coming back?
I think it's part of it is just because of the sheer amount of time you spend just looking at the ceiling, like when you're in your shelter at night, or when you're sitting in there because it's a blizzard out, or there was a lot of time of just like looking at the roof, thinking, going over every thought you ever had,
Yeah.
and it's crazy, man. It's just the amount of time you have to kill while you're out there when you're not doing the things you need to do.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's the first I've ever heard it put that way, is that you're thinking of every thought you've ever had. But I'm sure that that's pretty true. When you were talking earlier, you were mentioning that you learned a lot about your, I guess, your then current self, and I think a little about your past self, and then the future self. Do you mind sharing some of those things that you learned about who you were at the time and who you wanted to become?
Sure. Yeah. During my time out there, it was I went through a lot of strengthening myself. Like I went into this challenge um expecting to get my ass kicked, and I did, but I gave it everything I had, which was, I don't know if I've ever given it everything I had in any of the things I've done in life. So it was like, um, it was kind of like eye opening, like, oh, I can do this, like I can do these things that I've always been held back to do, or I've been afraid to do, or take that first big step, and here I am doing it. So, stuff like that, where it just kind of makes you feel like you can take on other difficult tasks after going through something like that.
Yeah. As you're talking about that, I'm thinking about myself, and I'm sure other people are thinking about themselves as well as they're hearing you talk about that. And I mean, you obviously applied for the show, right? And you went through the steps and you did it, but you learned a lot about yourself and about how strong you really were. Were you expecting? I mean, did you really think that you could do it, or did you have these moments where that now you're looking back like, wow, I'm a lot stronger than I ever thought I was?
Yeah. I think going out there, I was thinking, man, if I if I can make it a month, I'll be stoked. That's was my kind of thought process going out there. Um, so I really had no idea. I've never had more than a week's time off to do any kind of outdoor stuff. Being a laborer and stuff. On construction crews, it's always you know you don't get long paid vacations or anything like that. So I really didn't know how long I could go out there because I had never really had the chance to really test myself. So um, going out there, I knew it was going to be hard. I had no idea the crazy regulations we were going to be under, though. I never thought some of the stuff we had to abide by would be a thing.
How
So that made it a lot more difficult.
it sounds like this is another thing I never would have expected, but it sounds like a lot of those local rules and game laws that you have to abide by, like it kind of is like a last minute, oh hey, by the way,
Oh yeah, it was for sure.
because I'm hearing stories like from season 2, right? Mike mentioned that from way back in season 2 of it's like almost launch day, and they're like, oh, by the way, if it flies or does X, Y, or Z, it's off limits.
Yeah.
So how long before did you know that? I guess for the people out there, and you obviously understand them better than me, but there were quite a bit of restrictions, and this isn't just a free for all, right? You still have to follow
Right.
local game laws and jurisdictions. There were regulations and restrictions on when you could use your gill nets. What other restrictions did you guys have, and how long before everything started did you know that you were going to be kind of playing with that hand?
Well, in the last 2 weeks of orientation camp, because this year, because of COVID, we had to go to Canada 2 weeks earlier and quarantine for 2 weeks, and then we could start our orientation process. So it was another 2 weeks added on to the normal alone experience, and pretty much throughout the entire time we were up there, things were bouncing around on what we would be able to do or what we wouldn't be able to do, and nothing was really clear. And it was like, oh, there's all this here, but then, the next report was, oh, but you can only have these few things, like that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And it felt like it was like every other day there was a new big like kick in the shin.
Gotcha. So I guess that makes sense. So it sounds. And you might not know the backside of this. We'll have to get a producer on the show at some point. But
Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe there's some bureaucracy and some government juggling happening where they're saying,
Definitely.
hey, we can adjust our typical. The game commission is basically saying, hey, we can adjust our typical rules to this, or we can't make that exception. And so probably the reason why it's last minute is because it's government. I work in government type rules and regulations, and a lot of that stuff you don't know it until the day after it happened. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, and this particular area is a complicated area because it's got the Chilcote and Tidal Land is part of it, but then there's parts of it that are BC parks, and then like there's like 3 different factions up there that all have their own kind of say of certain things, and that particular lake had really strict fishing regulations, which is fine if you're out sport fishing for the day and you've got a tackle box full of lures and artificial jigs and stuff. But
I go to the lodge at night with a fire and a chef cooked meal.
You put someone out there with a stick pole and say you can't use bait, it's kind of crappy,
Oh.
Like, no, you can't put a bug on that hook. You gotta make a bug.
Wow. That's one that I did not know. So there were even artificial fly and lure only restrictions on the lake.
So we couldn't use any baits, no live bait, no digging up worms or catching a flying bug, which is all the stuff I normally do for that kind of a thing,
Yeah.
And like lures and jigs are kind of like a last resort thing for me. Like if I can't find bait, that's what I'm going for,
Yeah, it's like, hey, can I swap out my gosh, my axe for a fly tying kit. Is that fine if I hurry and go do that?
Yeah, and then the barbless hook thing too doesn't help. I lost way more fish than I ever landed
Well,
out
that's,
there.
I think that, and for people, I mean, again, I think that's one of the criticisms people have, but we live in a modern society that has to make sure that we manage our fish and wildlife for sustainability and for the future and for Biko's twins and for my daughters to be able to have those things. And so, we have to manage it, but it's, I mean, it makes it super challenging, and that's an added level of the mental aspect of things that I just had never pondered, is that, because of, again, a barbless restriction. I mean, for me, a lot of times when I fish on certain bodies of water, I will pinch my barbs just because I don't intend to keep the fish and I want it to be as easy as possible. But
I do the same thing if I'm doing capture and release fishing.
yeah, so I'll pinch barbs, but you definitely lose a lot of fish that way, which if that's what you're trying to do, it's actually kind of nice. You let it get up and then it flops off and you don't have to touch it
Yeah.
and, deal with it. But I just imagine that, maybe after a while that starts to get really old and really,
Oh
really
man.
challenging mentally.
It's hard to keep tension on a line without a pole. With like with bait, you could see that they pull the line tight, you set the hook, right? And then
Yeah.
you hand line them in. But when you're trying to do a jig or a lure by hand, it's a lot more, it's easy to miss those strikes, and those hook sets.
Yeah, so I guess the takeaway is I am sure that all 10 people who were on season 8 of Alone are fantastic fisher people. Right? I'm sure you all are great at catching fish. So just what you see on TV, for all those who think you're terrible fisher people, it's just challenging.
Yeah. I was that was definitely one of my biggest disappointments out there, was how little fish I had. I went out there expecting to eat fish every week. I catch a lot of fish back home and everywhere else I go.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a challenge that I've never contemplated, but I think over the last little while I've realized that I need to make my own lure from some old crusty pop can and like fencing wire,
Yeah,
and see what I can do. I think that's an experience I need to try at least once, and then I'll just open up my tackle box and get serious again.
it's fun, man. It's funny, the thing that had the most success for me was a fly made out of beard hair and and eagle feathers. And it was like I made this little tiny fly, and like my beard hair all twisted up was like the insect legs and body, and then I had these little bits of white wings for
That's
the wing.
that's funny. You should turn that into a thing, right? And so instead of going and buying woolly buggers, people can buy Biko buggers from
Right.
made with real Biko fur.
Yep, I always got plenty of that.
That's funny. That's really funny, actually. All right, so we've talked a little bit about Alone and that experience, and I guess to circle back again, so you were talking about your future self and who you want to be and what you learned of who you want to be from that show and that experience. Can you go into that and talk about your future self and who you hope
Yeah.
to be based on what you learned out there?
Yeah, well, some of the lessons I learned out there was, just how much more important than I even thought friends and family are, and just, realizing that when those resources aren't there and you're completely alone, how much tougher it is to process things, and basically like going through that, you just get more thankful for your family and more thankful for everything. So I came out of there just with more gratitude for everything that I have in life and all the blessings that have come my way and my family's way and all the great friends I have and stuff. And so like it sort of just made me more appreciative of all that stuff that I already had that, you know, maybe I was taking for granted.
Yeah, this is the tenth conversation I've had with a participant from the show, and that's a super common theme I think that everyone has mentioned, is that no matter where your relationships were when you left, you come back cherishing them even more, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it kind of makes me jealous, if I'm honest. I'm not jealous of much of the experience of the show, to be frank. Like, I love to camp and do all that stuff, but I going on the show isn't in my future. But that's something that I'm envious of, I guess, is having that experience that forces you to have that deeper sense of gratitude and that deeper sense of love and that deeper sense of appreciation. Because, like, I don't know, it's just hard for me knowing that other people had this experience, and they now get to feel that way, and I have to find a different way to get there.
Yeah.
It's a huge gift and a huge
Yeah.
blessing. Obviously, you earned every ounce of that gratitude and every ounce of that love. But if there was a way that you could bottle that and impart it on people, you go right ahead and sign me up first.
Yeah. That's what I call music, man.
Well, that was quite the transition point, and I'm not gonna let that go. So we're gonna use that. So music was obviously huge for you while you were out there on alone, and it's obviously a huge part of your life. Let's just go there. Music.
Yeah, man. I've always loved music. My grandparents are blues musicians in New Orleans. Um, they still play in the French Quarter and stuff like that. Obviously, not with COVID. They're very old these days, but um, yeah, music's in my blood, So it's always been a part of me ever since I was a little kid. I've been doing something musical, and I wouldn't say I'm a master of anything, but ended up leaning more towards singing as I got older, and I love to sing. I love to make songs. I play in a metal band and a pagan folk band, and I love it, man. Pretty much music and the wilderness are two of the things that make me the happiest. So I I'm trying to figure out a life where I can focus on those places.
On singing in wilderness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, can you talk about the experience with music on alone and what your music did for you while you were out there?
Yeah, yeah. Um so yeah, I mean, I was singing all the time. Um it definitely helped me cope with the loneliness. Um Jumping into song, making myself laugh and all that stuff just helps you be more comfortable with being in an uncomfortable situation, you know. Which, I love to do stuff like that. I love to be in the wilderness, but at a certain point you're you're sick of it, and you're ready to get out of there. Um but yeah, the music was super important for me because there's so many times where like I was just feeling down, and singing some stupid song about whatever I was doing would cheer me up. There was times where I'd watch the footage back on my camera and just be like, ha, ha, ha.
Watching the pre-show of Alone.
Yeah, just out of boredom.
Yeah. Did you did you sing yourself through things before the show, or is that something that you picked up while you were out there?
That's kind of something that's I've always done. My friends always made fun of me for singing these ridiculous songs when we're out in the forest camping and stuff, and like I'll just ad lib, make stuff up like that, like I did on the show.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's very much just this just a me thing. So I just carried over, because you can't hide your true self when you're out there. No matter what, it's gonna get on camera at
Yeah.
some point. So
That's why
there
that's
was a
a
lot of that.
that's an interesting thought. Um, of how long it takes you to be like, all right, well, I guess I guess this is legitimately how it's going to be, so I might as well, stop worrying about how I'm presenting myself and just get on with it.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's in everybody's mind when they're starting it. They're like, man, I don't want to look stupid or say something dumb, or it's gonna be in front of all these people. But at the end of the day, when you're out there and it's just you stop giving a shit.
That's funny. So let's talk about your other bands as well. So you're playing in a metal band and a pagan folk band. Can you talk
Yeah.
about? Let's start with the metal band and who is that band and how long have you been
Yeah.
doing that for?
The band is Sirion, and it's a melodic death metal band that I've been playing with since I was about 19. Um, we were a different band back then, and then kind of transitioned into the band that it is today. And it's we've had an album in production hell for the last few years, and we've been trying to get it out, and it's supposed to be coming soon. But I'm hoping that when that album drops, we can kick things up a notch, because lately we've all gotten busy with our lives, and we're all just kind of waiting on this album, and it just seems to be in album purgatory.
Yeah. Is there
There's
anywhere
always
that is there
thing,
anywhere that people can find your stuff now? Do you have like a YouTube or whatever? I know there's websites out there, but I'm not that cool. Is there any places where people can go if they want to hear Biko frontlining your metal band?
Yeah, we have our Facebook page, and then we're on Bandcamp and Spotify, and I think we're on Apple Music too. Um, we had a whole YouTube channel with a bunch of stuff, and like I swear, right when I was about to, have the show drop, something happened with our YouTube channel, and it got deleted, and we lost all our views and all of our content from like the last decade.
That
And
is
now all that
terrible.
stuff's buried away and hard drives long forgotten and stuff. So it's like this, just the worst timing for it all to collapse.
One of these days I'll get someone on who hopefully I'll get one of the people on that has a YouTube channel and a following there. And I want to ask that question. I mean, man, that's got to just be every night you go to bed and you're like, man, I hope I wake up with a YouTube channel, because that
Yeah,
happens to people, right?
it does. Yeah.
And I mean, it's inexcusable when you consider, especially today, right, what YouTube means for so many people and their livelihoods.
Oh,
Um,
totally.
Man, but that's terrible. I mean, you still have it, but the amount of work to
Yeah.
go back through
Well,
and get
we
all of
lost
that.
all that content, but I think we finally got a couple new videos up and made a new channel, because they were saying that there was no way to get it back, basically.
Ugh. Well, we'll go ahead and link your Facebook pages and other places people can find Sirion.
That'd be
And
awesome.
so let's talk about your pagan folk band and who is
Yeah.
that and what do you guys do there? And then there's going to be more questions coming from there, I'm sure.
Yeah. That is a project I've been working on since I've been in Oregon with one of the old members who was in Sirion. Our old bass player is a good friend of mine for many years. And he lives up here by me, and we started this other project. It's kind of the other half of the music we love. We got the metal side, and then love this other kind of like Irish folk and um, ritualistic music, kind of like Heilung and Wardruna, and then more like upbeat, Irishy, folky stuff too, with fiddles and flutes and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a weird mix of, it's got some like tribally drum songs, and there's definitely metal influences in it. But the band is called Andalos, and we're going to be releasing our first EP I think this winter maybe, or maybe spring. But we recorded it this summer, and it's being mixed now.
Cool. So first off, I hear that EP thing a lot, and I've just been too lazy to Google it. And I get from context that EP is basically like a first release of something major for a band or something. What
Yeah,
what
it's like
what does that
a
stand
half
for?
album. It stands for extended play, I
Okay.
think, unless I'm wrong, but I think that's what it stands for.
Oh, if you're wrong, we will find out. People will let us
Oh,
know.
yeah, Google will let us know for sure.
Cool. So that's coming, and where can people find that band?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page, Endelos Folk, and then Instagram. We're on there as well. Um, Joey, my other band member, he runs all that stuff. So I'm not really. I think we have a Twitter too, but I'm not sure.
Cool. Well, I'll find that and link, but it's Endelos. Is that right?
It's now we changed it to Endalos.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get that linked and so people can go and find some stuff to listen to because for me, that sounds awesome. Anything that's got like that Irish folk, that is super drawing to me. And
Yeah.
so
We do a lot of covers of, you know, old Irish songs or sea shanties and Irish rebel songs and stuff like that.
that's cool. Well, I'm gonna go look that up as soon as we're done here. Um, can we talk about the pagan part? Because I'll be honest, that's a thing. That's a concept for me. Obviously, I've heard the term
Yeah.
and understand, but can you kind of elaborate on that and teach me what that means to you? I guess.
Yeah. Basically, it's kind of like um, it means different things for all kinds of different people. There's
Yeah.
so many facets. It's a really broad term, but basically, it's kind of in our sense, it's like Norse mythology and the gods and rituals around that kind of um, spiritualistic belief system. For some people, it's nature. And something in nature represents these stories or this symbol or that. And it's definitely growing in popularity. It seems like, but I kind of started doing that like while I was still in high school, and it was something that was really personal for me and stuff, and I kind of kept more private. But yeah, it's been weird to have that broadcast to everyone because it's kind of just a touchy thing, I guess. And
Yeah, I
Christian nation.
no, and for me, like curiosity, right? And something that I've learned and obviously not being on your side of that, I don't understand what people think or what their first thoughts are when you mention that or when they hear that. Something that I've learned is that the more we get to know each other, man, the more we like each other, right? Like the better we understand each other and the better we understand who people are, the more we like each other. And so for me, it's curiosity and wanting to learn and understand. So it's unfortunate that things have to be touchy when they shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah.
Can I ask what drew you there when you were a younger guy?
I think it was the stories and the sagas and the mythology, and I just found it all fascinating. And growing up, I was really into history and mythology and stuff like that of ancient civilizations, and that was something I picked up on and kind of resonated with me. And then I read more into it, and then I got into runes and casting and worshiping nature and all that. So it was kind of something that, like, you dip a toe in and then you just climb all the way in.
Yeah, I think for me, when as I'm having these conversations and learning more, I resonate with the connection to nature, right? The connection to nature and connection to the land and the world that we live in is huge to me because, for me, I've got my own belief system, but um, one of the places I feel most connected to anything is in nature, right? It's
Yeah,
when I'm out
same.
there and you're seeing the beauty and the power and the awe, and it puts you in your place and you understand that
Yeah,
better now than you did 2 years ago, of how powerful of a power nature really is.
yeah,
And so
absolutely.
for me, that I really resonate with that because nature is really powerful for me.
Yeah, I think it's the same for a lot of the people who are involved in that. Um, nature is kind of a place of where they can feel all that stuff for sure. You know.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing, and thank you for opening up opening up about that and your feelings there. Obviously, I recognize that there's, as you mentioned, some sensitivities there. So I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
thanks for sharing and helping us learn and grow. Um, Something that I wanted to touch on as well, and you kind of mentioned this earlier when we were talking about family and when you were talking about your preparation. I think I had read somewhere that your brother had come and was helping you kind of prepare for the mental aspect of a loan. I hope I didn't get that wrong. Was that a
Yeah,
thing?
my brother did come up for a visit at the same time while my dad was up here. My dad came up here and was training with me. He loves all this stuff and he loves Alone, so he was super excited. But my brother's been always big on the mental stuff, and my brother's a big wave surfer and snowboarder and a realtor, and he loves these extreme sports where you can get buried in avalanches or sent to the bottom of the sea.
Yeah,
And so
surfing
he's
50-foot
big
waves or
on,
whatever.
yeah, like he goes to the big wave spots, and it's good to have that mental fortitude for just doing that when things go wrong, and so my brother's always been real big on that, those couple minute long hold unders, when you get slammed by a 40-foot wave. So he has some of that experience from that, and he was kind of just
So was he
teaching me.
drowning you to help you? Is that what you're getting at here?
Yeah, he's holding my head under. Yep. So he was kind of teaching me just how to control your mind when you're in a tough situation, or how to basically recover from something crappy happening, and basically not let that be the end of it, and kind of like, for example, I'll say a grizzly bear charged me, but I survived, right? I didn't get attacked. Maybe I made it out without a scratch, Okay, that encounter sucked. Do I want to leave? Well, maybe, but it's also over now. So how do I recover from that and start about my day again tomorrow, So it's kind of stuff like that where it was, stuff that might have made you go, "Oh, screw this, I'm out." Uh, you were able to be like, "Well, hold on. Well, yeah, that sucked, but let's just start over," And so there was a lot of stuff like that where not getting frustrated at things and basically, throwing the tantrum, and instead calmly realizing that you just gotta try something else,
Calmly shooting the bear banger, then the air
Yeah,
horn, and then
yeah,
preparing for another day.
yeah. So many damn grizzly bears, man.
Man, I tell you what, there is well, there's two creatures in North America that I'm like very, very respectful of, and that I wouldn't really want to run into, and I'm in like the wild. The first
Yeah.
one is people,
Hmm.
and then the second one is a grizzly bear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That
I
makes
feel like
sense.
sometimes I just need to have that experience to get over it. Mountain lions, no big deal. Black bears, no big deal to me, anyways.
Yeah.
Obviously, they need to be respected, but yeah, people and grizzly bears. And so, um, yeah, that would be a challenge for me. But what kind of stuff was your brother doing? Was it like talk sessions, or and what was he doing to help you train that mental aspect? Was it like
Yeah.
visualization of all the things that could possibly go wrong and how to handle that, or what were you guys doing?
Yeah. It was kind of like visualizations and affirmations. He was big on those. Like the affirmations and saying you're gonna do this or you're gonna stick to this. And basically just um it's kind of like the stuff that helped me push through, like, the times where you want to give up and call it quits, and but really it's not for that great of a reason, and then it's that kind of stuff, where you had to talk yourself out of it. And I would think of, that. But yeah, it was all like talking sessions and stuff. It wasn't like, oh, I think he wanted me to do some yoga or something too, but I never ended up doing any of that.
Like you didn't do that prepping with him, or you didn't do it on the show, or you
I
just
didn't do it on the show.
none at all?
I did do it while prepping with him some, yeah. And he was like, "Oh, just start your mornings like this," and I was like, we'll see after a few missed meals if I feel like getting up and doing yoga before going hunting and fishing."
I'm just gonna put this out there, Biko. Um, right now, as people are listening, there are a lot of very sad and disappointed people that we didn't get Biko yoga sessions.
Well, I'm sure.
Will we see some Biko yoga coming to your Instagram or Facebook anytime soon?
Yeah, hopefully. Maybe I'll put some on my outdoor YouTube channel.
There you go. That'll be your next business endeavor is yoga with Biko.
Yeah.
That's funny. And so you said your dad as well. He came and he did kind of a crash course with you because I mean your dad was it search and rescue is what he did, correct, or part of what he
Yeah,
did?
he was a Marine, and then he was a sheriff for 32 years. And the last, like, I think the last 10 years or so, he was doing search and rescue and heading the search and rescue team in Los Angeles. Um and yeah, he basically, he's had a career of doing militaristic stuff and outdoors stuff, and he's a hunter and a fisherman and an outdoorsman. So he basically just wanted to be a part of it,
Yeah.
and come and help me touch base on things that I was weaker at,
And
and
I would think that that's a shared experience that you'll both cherish
oh,
forever
it was
and
awesome.
yeah.
He said it was some of the best times he's had since he's retired. We were going to the coast and climbing way out on, the rocky coastline in Oregon and fishing for rockfish with stick poles, and we were catching stuff with stick poles and bait and creeks and the ocean and lakes, and then we were doing archery and going and setting traps and working on all kinds of stuff like that. My dad loves to nerd out on gear. So he was always, he's helping me order gear for the show and stuff and doing all this research. So yeah, it was a fun bonding experience, the whole leading up to it.
Yeah, that sounds like a really neat opportunity to have that time. How long did you guys spend doing that prep work?
Well, my dad was gonna come for I think he said 2 or 3 weeks, and he ended up staying. He parked a trailer in my driveway for 2 months. He stayed a lot longer than originally expected, but we were having fun.
That's super cool. Yeah, that's a neat opportunity. And when you were out there, I mean, did you think back on that time a lot, and did that help and give you strength as well?
Definitely. He stayed all the way until I flew out. He actually drove me to the airport when I was leaving, and I thought it was super cool that I was able to spend all that time with him, and he was obviously very proud, and it was just a cool experience to go through and have him be a part of it. And he was really worried for me when I was leaving, but I was full of excitement and nervousness and stuff. And yeah, when I was out there, I'd think back on the training sessions with Dad, and some of it I'd be like, damn it, we should have done this.
Should have pinched those barbs.
Yeah, should have got better socks, damn it.
Or like the mouse trapping, right?
Oh yeah. God, I wish I was able to eat those mice.
Yeah, it's funny. I when I was prepping for the last episode, looking at some of the stuff that Callie had done, I forgot that she'd made clothes hangers.
Yeah, she
Right?
did.
I forgot that she made clothes hangers. And I was thinking when I watched that, I started thinking of your experience, and I was like, huh. I think clothes hangers should be like the first thing that anyone does. Like build a shelter,
Right.
make clothes hangers. That was brilliant.
I actually had a clothes hanger in my shelter too, but it wasn't as cool. It was just a piece of snare wires strung across the shelter,
Mm-hmm.
and I would hang things on it.
So yours didn't look like it came from like, I don't even know. I'm trying to come up with a cute, fancy like outdoor name that's tied with some home goods store, but it didn't look like it came from somewhere like that.
No, not at all. My stuff was all very not pretty.
It was functional.
You saw my
That
shelter. I mean, I didn't even bother to cut the long logs off. I was just like, yeah, just leave it there. It's extra grizzly proofing.
hey, if we were like the early seasons of Alone, I'd be able to point in and say, and Biko saved 1,000 calories by not doing that. So really, that's the smart move, right?
Yeah.
So earlier we talked about your coming home, and 2 months later you had twins, and obviously it's well known, I guess, to those that are listening, and to those that follow people, that coming home is a challenge. What was that transition like for you, coming home and having to reintegrate and getting back into a normal swing? And then I can't even imagine the stresses that that adding children into that would be. How was it coming home, and how are you doing today?
Yeah, it was tough for a long time. Just getting used to normal life again, and like when I first was video chatting with Erin back home while I was still in the aftercare process, she had told me later, when I got home, that she said I had the 1,000-yard stare. And like she said, it looked like I had been to war or something. Like I forget what she said, but she said like my eyes like didn't have the same light in them or something. And I was
Oh
like,
man.
geez, it was that bad, huh? She's just like, yeah, like I just didn't know who was gonna be coming home. Like you just something about you looked totally different. And yeah, it was tough, especially being the runner up is also, that's another thing, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, so close, almost, almost was able to change my family's financial freedom. But yeah, it I think just the damage I did to my health from gaining weight for the show, and then losing a bunch of weight, and then gaining weight again when I got back. It was rough on my body, and when I got back, I felt weak. I had lost so much muscle that I've been building up from years of construction and mountain stuff. And, I was like, it was super weird because I was in this weird, like, I had lost a ton of muscle, I had lost a ton of fat. So it was like this weird, like, middle ground. And it took a long time for me to, like, feel strong again. And, I had to work out for like a month and a half straight and kind of get back on my shit. And then I started doing construction again, and it kind of felt like I didn't really have a lot of processing time. Like when I got back, I was kind of just trying to distract myself, it felt like, from and like just put it off, not deal with it, not process it,
Yeah.
Like it was like when I got back, I was just like, I just want to eat some good food and drink some good beer. It's like I want to watch some movies, play some video games, like
Right.
just I'm just gonna chill for a while, And like it took a little bit to be like, okay, I'm not going crazy anymore.
Yeah, as you're talking, and maybe the answer to this question is no, but I can imagine that, middle of the night or whenever, holding a screaming child or whatever, a sick child, that those moments would probably be moments that would kind of throw you back into that and kind of force you to, at least for me, it would kind of force me to go there. Is
Yeah.
that true?
Oh, totally. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's super weird to try to explain it to other people, and like whenever I do, I don't manage to explain myself very well. But yeah, it's exactly like that.
Yeah, and I think the challenge there is, and people that are listening have heard this mentioned by me, and I think other participants as well, is that I mean, more than 80, but there's roughly 80 people that have done something similar to you, right? And
Yeah.
so the amount of people, even if you extend it to people that get lost at sea or that get lost, on any other journey. I mean, today I just don't think there's that many people that are in that extreme situation for that duration of time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the reality is there's just not very many people that can feel the emotion with what you're saying. Like we can feel the emotion, but can understand the emotion, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. And that's got to be interesting. Like even a specialist, right? You talk to someone during aftercare, and you're just sitting there knowing, like, dude, you don't even understand. Like,
Yeah.
like
Totally.
you're helping, but you don't understand the feelings behind what I'm saying because there's just such a small number of people on the planet that have gone through this in modern history.
I think that's one of the great things about, being able to reach out to past participants and talk to them, like, because it's this connection that we all have, even though we're all from different walks of life and might have never met, some of us, and some people might never associate with a weird metalhead like me, but we're connected in this strange way through this game show where you have a simulated, basically, survival situation,
Yeah.
and there's that connection, and I've found that, um with some of the past participants and stuff, just talking to them, it feels like you know each other a little bit, even when you've never really spoken before, just
Yeah.
because we both know things about that experience.
That's cool. And I mean, I guess thank goodness for the season 1 folks that there was a season 2 and beyond, right? Otherwise
Right.
they'd be in a little bit of trouble. Um Biko, this has been awesome. I wanted to obviously thank you for coming on, and we'll kind of transition here. I know that One, you've got an awesome and busy family to get back to, but you're also mentioned that you've got an elk hunt tomorrow. So I can imagine that you're going to be getting up here in less hours than
Yeah.
than you were hoping for. Um, so as we transition, do you have anything that you want to set the record straight on, or anything we've talked about tonight that you want to clarify or expound on, or other than that, any just last things you want to say before we close up tonight?
Let me think. Well, all I can say for the people watching the show is, um, don't always believe how it's edited. Sometimes situations aren't the way they're perceived on the television show. And that can happen a lot. I know it's happened to a lot of other participants where they might have taken something out of context and mashed it up with something else to create a different narrative, which
Yeah, I think
it can happen. So
a perfect example of that is in season 8 on all the promo shots. After Clay, his spoiler alert. If you haven't watched season 8, go ahead and turn off now. But after Clay, they're doing the promos, and you see Clay just looking like the most terrible thing on the face of the planet has just happened to him, right? He looks just distraught, and it's just the worst day ever. And then when you see that clip in the show, it's like he just shot a deer. He's like literally kneeling over this animal that just gave its life for him, and he is on not even cloud 9. We're talking cloud 20, right? I think that's a perfect example of that, where it in the promos it looks like Clay's having a terrible day. But in reality, Clay is like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. Clay's like, I just won this shit.
Oh man, right. So yeah, don't it's still a show. It's a great show.
It is.
But give the people the benefit of the doubt. Any other last words before we wrap up tonight?
No, I think I've said it all. It's been awesome talking, man.
Yeah, hey, it's been a pleasure to visit with you. 1, go say hi to your family. 2, go get a little bit of sleep. 3, good luck tomorrow and shoot straight. And I, bless your back if you happen to get an elk.
Thanks, man. Yeah, tomorrow is for me more than anything just about getting out and having some fun. I've already gotten some game animals this year, so we got plenty of meat in the freezer.
Cool. Well, Biko, it's been a pleasure. I'll keep in touch, obviously, with your socials and see what's going on. And you have a great night.
Sounds good.
Okay, take
Pleasure
care.
talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. Have a good night, man.
All right.